right, we're going to start this course by going through Unit 1, Section 1. All of these are going to be set up the same way. They're always going to have an I can statement, and we're going to fill in that I can statement. If you want to put your name there, that'd be awesome, and put the date there. That way you can keep track of that it's yours and what date we covered this. So the I can statement for 1.1 is I can understand and use the order of operations. So write the word operations right here. And then we're going to go through and we're going to do this warm-up. Now, this will be very common as we go through and do a discussion about a new topic or something like that. So please read these, follow the instructions. If you need some help, we'll give you some help. But on this one, I'm going to read the instructions, and then if you want to pause the video for a second and see if you can get these right, that would be awesome. So do the following without a calculator. Be prepared to explain your answers to the class. So go ahead and pause it, see if you can get these right, and I'm going to continue in just a second. So let's see, we're going to take, we've got 5 plus 4 times 2. We're going to do the multiplication first. So we're going to do 5 plus 4 times 2 is 8. Then we're just going to do that last operation. We're going to add these together and we're going to get 13. I always like to circle the answer so we can tell the difference between our work and what we think the answer is. Let's take a look here. We've got some parentheses on this one. So we've got 8 divided by 2 plus 4. We'll do the division first. So this is going to be 4 plus 4. So that's going to be an 8 here, and then I'm going to replace this this times with just a set of parentheses. We're going to add these together. So we're going to do 3 plus 7, which is 10. So that's going to be 80. So I'm going to circle that answer there. And then on this one we've got negative 3 squared, and if we take a look at the one right next to it, it also says negative 3 squared, but this one has a set of parentheses on it. So whenever we have negative 3 squared, remember the exponent tells you how many times you use the base as a factor. So this really means negative, and then we've got a 3, and then another 3. This exponent means we've got 2 3's. So when we multiply those together, we get negative 9. And because this exponent 2 is above the parentheses with the negative 3 in it, what it literally means is we've got a negative 3 times a negative 3. So 2 negatives and 2 3's, so that's going to make a positive 9. So if you check your answers with that, hopefully you got the same answer. The idea here is that we all want to get the same answer every single time when we do these problems. So when people think of doing math, they usually think of 4 or 5 basic math concepts, and those math concepts usually revolve around these guys right here. So I'm going to put a big plus sign, I'm going to put a big minus sign, I'm going to put a multiplication sign, and I'm going to use an X for that. We're going to get away from that very quickly. We're going to use a dot. In fact, I think right now I'm going to go ahead and change that to a dot. Let's make that a dot for multiplication. And then we also use division, and we're also not going to use this symbol very much, so we'll get away from that right there. So each one of these is called an operation. So write the word operation right here. Each one of those is called an operation, and since we're going to see these operations in all sorts of different orders, in groupings, mathematicians made some rules to make sure that we get the same answer every single time. We've all got to get the same answer all the time. So we can remember the order of operations with 2 common mnemonic devices, and if you haven't heard the word mnemonic device before, it's basically a memory tool. So we're going to write memory tool. Memory tool. So the first one you might recognize, it's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And the second one is, I think this is the one that a lot of people memorize, is something called PEMDAS. So we're going to write some big capital letters right here, PEMDAS. And what these stand for, you'll notice that these letters that spell out PEMDAS, they're the first letters of each one of these words here. So P for please, E for excuse, M for my, D for dear, and so forth. And what they stand for is the order in which we're going to do operations. So the P stands for parentheses. So I'm going to put a set of parentheses, and I'm just going to write parens down here. E stands for exponent, and when we talk about exponents, we're talking about raising a base to a power. So I'm going to show a little example like that. When we talk about multiplication, so we're talking about multiplication and we're talking about division, and I'm going to do something special right here. I'm going to put a little bracket underneath these, and I'm going to put L2R. Multiplication is not more important than division. We always do these in the order that they come to them. So whichever one comes first from left to right, that's what we do first. And then of course we've got A for addition, S for subtraction, and then the same thing is true here. Addition is not more important than subtraction, so we're always going to do these in the order that we come to them from left to right. And if we do that, then we're always going to get the answer right. So we're going to come down here and it says evaluate each expression, and then it says confirm your answer on your calculator. So we're going to go ahead and get these answers, and then we're going to try and make sure that we can get the same thing on our calculator. So we've got 2 times 5 minus 5 times 10, and notice the difference. We've got a dot here for multiplication and an x here for multiplication. And then we've got 10 times, and then in parentheses 8 divided by 4. So we're going to do what's in parentheses first. So we're going to do the 8 divided by 4, so we end up with a 2. So what we have here is we have 2 times 5 minus 5, and I'm going to replace that with a dot, times 10, and then remember the 8 divided by 4 is a 2. So we've got some multiplication here, and then we've got some subtraction. Well, we've got the parentheses done. There aren't any exponents in here, but we do have some multiplication. So let's take care of all the multiplication first. So this is going to be a 10, and then this is going to be minus 5 times 10 is 50, and 50 times 2 is 100. So we have 10 minus 100, so we end up with negative 90. So we'll put a circle around that. Then let's take a look at the next one. We've got a 12, and then we've got plus, so we've got an addition right here, and then there's nothing in between here. Remember, this is called implied multiplication. So we've got addition and multiplication. We're definitely going to take care of the multiplication first. So this is going to be 12 plus, this is 20. We've got one last operation to do, so we're going to put those together, and we end up with 32. Take a look at this one right here. We've got addition, we've got multiplication, and we've got subtraction. We're going to do the multiplication first. So we've got 2 plus, this is going to be 20, minus 3. Now, I kind of like doing this. We can do them in the order that they come from left to right. And on this one, that's really nice because we're going to put the two positive ones together. We're going to get a 22, and then we're going to subtract the 3. So we end up with 19 on this one. Here we've got a set of parentheses multiplied by another set of parentheses. Let's take care of what's in the parentheses first. So we've got a 6 on this one, and then I'm just going to use the parentheses to show implied multiplication. So this is going to be 5 minus 3, so that's going to be 2. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn our attention to a calculator. So I'm going to first bring up this page right here. You should have a copy of this page. If you don't, grab one right now. We're going to be using a TI-84 graphing calculator in this class, and I want to make sure that we're really clear on how we use calculators, especially graphing calculators. We won't do any graphing right now, but these are pretty sophisticated machines. A couple things I want to make sure that we're clear on before we get started is a calculator is simply a tool. It is just a tool. It is not a crutch. You don't use it for everything, and for sure it does not have a brain. It doesn't have a brain. Okay? You're the one who must provide the brain power. So and the reason for that is if you type the wrong thing in, you're going to get the wrong thing out. So if you put the wrong thing in, you will get the wrong thing out. I don't want to hear anybody come up and say, well, this is what my calculator gave me. If you put the wrong thing in, it's going to give you the wrong answer. So please make sure you're putting it in the right way. Don't just rely on it every single time. And like most tools, it's important to know how to use it correctly. So we want to make sure that we learn how to use it correctly. And we also want to know its limits. There are some things the calculator is great at and some things that it's not so great at. If we learn more how to use the calculator and learn how to use it better, then you're going to be better off. Okay, so I want to point out a couple of things here. We're going to go down this side over here. Let's talk about the second key first. We've got the home screen right here. This is where all the calculations and numbers will appear. We use that second button right here. It happens to be blue on this particular calculator. It could be different colors, but we use this to access the blue functions above each one of the other buttons. So this is the second function button, and you'll notice that above a lot of these there's a blue command or operation or something like that. So we use the second button to access those, and the first one that we ought to be aware of is the second and quit. So if we hit the second button and then the mode button, it's going to access quit. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to quit whatever window we're in, and then it'll normally take you to your home screen. We don't use the actual mode button very often, so just kind of leave that alone. If we get to that point, then we'll cover what to do there. The alpha button allows you to access any of the green commands. If you're alpha button is a different color, then these green things would be a matching color. So the thing that we're going to use that mostly for is to enter fractions, and we're going to do that tomorrow. So I'll show you on the next page. And then a couple other things on this side. Make sure you know the difference between the minus button, the subtraction key, and the negative button. These are not interchangeable on a calculator. So if you want to do the operation of subtracting, minusing something, then you do that here. If you want to put a negative in front of something, then you put it right here. And you'll be able to see this is long and right in the middle. This is a little bit shorter, and it's raised up about 1 pixel line up. And then we're going to come back up here. F1 right here, that's used to access the fraction input menu. We'll do more of that tomorrow. You'll notice that because it's green, we would have to hit the alpha button and then hit the y equals button in order to bring up that menu. So if we want to hit F1, we have to hit alpha and then F1. The insert, you'll notice right here, is above the delete. The delete, of course, deletes whatever the cursor happens to be on. The insert button allows you to insert. So if you've got a big, long string of things that you've put in there and you don't want to erase all of them, and you just need, oh, I forgot to put a negative in there, you can use the insert button. And because it's blue, you'll notice that it's blue. You've got to hit the second and delete. So second delete or second insert. We'll pull that up. You'll notice the clear button going over on this side. If you hit it once, it clears the line you're on. If you hit it twice, it clears the entire screen. The parentheses are used quite a bit. You'll notice the parentheses right above here, above the 8 and the 9 key. And then we've got the memory button right here. We are going to use the memory button here in just a second. So get your calculator ready for that. The memory button is a really useful key because we're going to use a classroom set of calculators, and sometimes something gets messed up. Somebody resets the settings on them, or has a weird graph on there or something like that. We can reset things back to factory settings using that reset, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. And then there's one last thing I want you to be aware of. The enter button is like the equals button, and above there you'll see entry. These calculators have what's called deep recall, and that allows you to recall, I believe, the last 20 commands that you typed in there. So if you made a mistake on something, you don't have to retype the entire thing. You could hit second. Notice the entry is blue, so you could hit second and enter, and that will recall the last command. You can go through and you can delete, you can insert, and then you don't have to type the entire command from scratch. So we're going to come back here to this one right here, and we're going to double check and make sure we have these right. I've got a calculator right here. I'm going to bring this up over here on this side for the time being. So I am going to clear this off. Okay, notice I hit that twice. And then just for the heck of it, because this might be the beginning of the year, who knows who used your calculator before, we're going to go ahead and reset the memory. So the memory button is right here above the plus sign. It says MEM, and it's blue. So I'm going to hit second and memory, second and plus, and you'll notice on number 7 it says reset. Now you can down arrow. I wouldn't recommend that, and I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hit 7 to bring up that. So we want to do two things right here. We want to reset the defaults, so I'm going to go down here to 2 and hit enter, or you can just hit 2, and then we also want to do 2 because it's saying, hey, this is a serious thing. Do you really want to reset this? We're going to go ahead and say yes by hitting enter. So the defaults are all set. And then we are going to reset the RAM also. So I'm going to hit second and memory to bring up the memory menu. I'm going to hit 7. I want to reset the RAMs. Okay, that's going to reset all the random access memory, all the memory in the calculator. So anything somebody stored in there before is going to be gone. So I'm going to hit 1. It says, are you sure you want to do this? I'm going to hit 2. It's going to go ahead and do that, and then everything's reset. Now to get off of this right here, we're going to go ahead and hit clear twice, and then we're all set to go. So let's make sure that we can type this in here. So this is going to be 2 and then times, and then whoops, that's a 5. Backspace here, so that's a 5. And then we're going to subtract, not the negative but the subtract, and then we'll do 5 times 10. And then I can do implied multiplication, so I'm going to do a set of parentheses, and I'm going to do 8 divided by 4, close the parentheses, hit enter, and there's the negative 90. So we've got that answer correct. Okay, and we can just leave this here. The nice thing is we'll just have a big long string of the commands that we've typed in. So the next one we're going to do 12 plus, then we're going to do 2, and then we're going to do times. You could do the parentheses if you want. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that. 10. Just to show that it knows the implied multiplication like we did up before. Okay, there's our 32. I'm going to slide this over. And we'll take a look at this next one. So 2 plus 4 times 5 minus 3. And we get our 19. And then the last one's got some parentheses on it. So we're going to do 2 plus 4, close the parentheses. I'm going to hit the times, open another set of parentheses. I'll do 5 minus 3. Close the set of parentheses just for good practice there. It's just a good habit to be in. Hit that and we end up with 12. So we've got those right. Okay, so that looks really good. We're in good shape there. So we're going to go ahead and evaluate these right here. So I'm just going to do these first couple as quick as I can, and then I'm going to pause when I get to this one. So I'm going to bring this up again. I'm going to slide that over. And we're going to take a look at this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this off so I can see where I'm starting with. Nice home screen here. So this is going to be 6 plus 21, and then I'm going to hit divide by 7, and we get 9. Now that shouldn't be a surprise because we're going to do the division first. That's going to be a 3. 6 plus 3 is 9. So I'm going to put a 9 right here. And the thing I want you to notice about that particular one is that probably would have been faster if we had just done it in our heads. The 21 divided by 7 is 3. 6 plus 3 is 9. That's way faster than taking this and typing it into our calculators. So we're going to take a look at the next one. Let's see, we've got 63 divided by 21, a little bit bigger number. Okay, so 63 divided by 21, you might be able to figure out what that would be. So I'm going to hit the plus, and then 11 times 20. Now this looks like a little bit bigger number, but we should know this is going to be a fairly small positive number. This is going to be a big positive number. We're expecting a fairly large answer out of this, and we do. We get 223. So 223 right here. Okay, next one, I'm going to slide this over. So we're going to have a set of parentheses. We've got 12 minus 4 divided by 4. Close the set of parentheses. Then we're going to add 8. Then we're going to subtract 3 times 5. Now when you get a long one like this, it's always a good idea to double check that what you've got written on the page is what you've got typed into the calculator. Looks like everything's correct here. Let's hit enter, and we end up with a 4. That is a little bit surprising to me. So let's just go back and make sure. This would have been 12 minus 1. So that part's going to be 11. So this is going to be 11 plus 8. And then we're going to be subtracting 3 times 5. So we're going to be subtracting 15. That would have been 19 minus 15. Yep, we end up with 4. So it got the right answer. We're in good shape there. Always a good idea to double check every once in a while. Now before we do this next one, I want to point something out. Almost every rule has an exception. So when we were talking before about these order of operation rules, whether you remember it as Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS, or something else, we've got to make sure that we do it in the same order. And this is a rule, but there is an exception to this rule. So a fraction bar breaks the problem into a top and a bottom. That fraction bar does represent division, but we're not going to do that division until the very end. It's the last thing we're going to do. So we're going to find the top, meaning find the answer to the top. Then we're going to find the bottom, meaning we're going to find the answer to the bottom. And then we're going to do the division represented by the fraction bar. And it's going to be really important to put parentheses around the top and the bottom to make the calculator find the right answer. So let's take a look at this one right here. And for this one, I am going to go ahead and clear this off. So I'm going to hit the home screen twice. And I'm going to do a set of parentheses. And I'm going to do the 4 plus 8. And then times another set of parentheses. No problem doing them twice. 5 minus 3. Close the parentheses and close the parentheses. So you'll notice I opened, closed, and closed. So we've got the entire top. Then I'm going to hit divide, and I'm going to do an entire set of parentheses for the bottom. So I'm going to do 7 plus 6 divided by 2. And we're going to close the parentheses. And I'm going to hit enter. And it says that the answer is 2. Okay, so I'm going to put a 2 right here, and I'm going to circle that. Now let's double check and make sure just a couple different ways. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that on the top I've got a 4, and then we've got an plus 8 times, and this is going to be, let's see, 5 minus 3 is 2. Okay, and on the bottom we have a 7 plus 6 divided by 2 is 3. So on the top we have a 4 plus, this is 16, so that's going to be a 20 on the top. 7 plus 3 is a 10 on the bottom, and is 20 divided by 10 too? It is. So we're in good shape there. So we did get that right, but I do want to show you something really quickly. I'm going to hit second enter. So I'm going to recall this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all the parentheses that weren't there to begin with. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to delete that set of parentheses. I'm going to delete that set of parentheses. Now the parentheses around the 5 minus 3 were there to begin with, so I'm going to leave it right there. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and delete that set of parentheses at the beginning. So I'm going to hit delete. And there we go. So if you take a look at this, I've got the 4 plus 8 times the 5 minus 3 in parentheses, and then divided by the 7 plus 6 divided by 2. Now if you don't have parentheses in there, it's going to give us a different answer. In fact, it gives us a really wrong answer, a very ugly answer of 9.2857. And the reason it does that is the calculator thinks that you want it to do the multiplication, the parentheses, then the multiplication, then do the division, and then go through and do all the addition. And that's not what we want. So if you want to make sure that the calculator is going to do the right thing with a fraction bar, you've got to make sure that you put it in parentheses like we did up above. Put the entire top in parentheses divided by the entire bottom in parentheses. Okay, let's take a look at a couple more, and then we're done for today, and we'll turn you loose on the assignment. So on this one here, we need to put a set of brackets on here. Now, there are brackets written here. You could use brackets on the calculator, but you don't need to. They're just another set of parentheses. So let's do this. We're going to do parentheses 10, and this works really well as long as you type it in correctly the first time. So we're going to do 3, and we're going to square it. The squaring button is right here. You could also use this caret key, but we're going to hit the squaring button. And then we're going to do minus 5. We're going to close the parentheses. And remember, we opened with a set of parentheses, so we're going to close with another set of parentheses. And then we're going to do plus 6. Again, we're going to square that. So we hit that button right there. And then we're going to divide by 2. Hit enter, and we end up with 24. Okay, so if you type that into your calculator and got 24, then you're doing pretty well. And then the last one we're going to do today is this one right here. Again, it's got a fraction bar, so we've got to make sure that we type things in there in parentheses. So we're going to start with a set of parentheses for the top. Put the entire top in parentheses. So we're going to do minus 2, and then a set of parentheses, 1 plus 1, set of parentheses. We're going to square that. And then we're going to close the set of parentheses for the top. So you'll notice that big set of parentheses encloses the entire top. We're going to hit divide, open a set of parentheses for the bottom, and then it's that same denominator we did before. It's going to be 7 plus 6 divided by 2. And we'll close the parentheses there, hit enter. And this one says the answer is negative 0.2. Decimal answers, no problem. Probably won't have a ton of those on today's assignment, but it's not a problem if we get some decimals there. So practice plugging things into the calculator the right way. It might be a good idea to double check your answers with me or a neighbor every once in a while. We've got to be really good at using the calculator. We're going to rely on it quite a bit, but we really need to make sure that we're typing the correct thing in so we can get the correct thing out. All right, good luck.